The Dodgers just got swept. I'm not worried about the offense, but the pitching, that's a little bit of a different story.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. This is the daily podcast covering the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers, and that's how that happens. I'm Vince Samperio. That's Jeff Snider. Welcome. If it's your first time, we appreciate you checking us out. If it's not your first time, we appreciate you coming back. And today we're going to talk about the Dodgers getting swept, but not directly. We're going to talk a little bit about each phase of the game and whether we're concerned about it or how concerned we are about it. We're going to talk about the offense. We're going to talk about the bullpen. We're going to talk about the starting pitching. All have their issues, all have things to maybe be optimistic about or maybe not. We'll talk about all of it. So, Jeff, let's start right into it. Let's start off with the biggest news of the weekend, other than the Dodgers getting swept, is that Chris Taylor is no longer on the Dodgers. The reports early on Sunday were that he was getting designated for assignment after they found out he didn't have a locker anymore. The final news was that he was released in order to make room for Tommy Edman. And not surprising in the sense of after seeing what happened with Austin Barnes, but still, kind of interesting that it happened.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. The difference between a release and a DFA is mostly a paperwork one. It just means that he is immediately a free agent instead of them taking a week to either try to trade him or put him through waivers. Some of that is probably just the fact that anybody who was to trade for him or claim him off waivers would then be on the hook for his contract, and nobody's going to want to do that, and the Dodgers know that, so there's no point doing it that way. But also it does Taylor a little bit of a solid by giving him, he's a free agent now, so he has total control, whereas if he was on waivers, any team could claim him, but now he has control. If there happen to be multiple teams that are interested in his services, we'll see what his market ends up being. It was time. Unfortunately, and you and I talked about that last week, that when this roster crunch came, because this is when we all saw it coming. We knew Tommy Edman and Teoscar Hernandez are coming back, and James Outman is obviously one of the moves, and the other move is either Ha-Seong Kim goes back to the minors or they dump Chris Taylor. And it just, like we said, the correct answer was Chris Taylor. Even when you factor in the sentimentality, all that stuff, a lot of people were surprised because they thought they would wait till he got his 10 years of service time. We talked the other day about, I guess it was mostly me and Clinton and Doug who talked about why that didn't hold water with me. All in all, the Dodgers are trying to win another World Series. And, they got to the point. Chris Taylor made sense for this roster at the beginning of the season because Kim wasn't ready for the big leagues. Just like Austin Barnes made sense because Rushing had only played 37 games at AAA. You could have made a case for Hunter Fiducia, but then that probably would have made it harder to call up Dalton Rushing once Rushing was ready. Now that Rushing and Kim are ready, there just wasn't room for Barnes and Taylor on this roster. And I applaud the Dodgers for being willing to take that hard step. I kind of half jokingly compared it to when you have a loved one who has a long illness and then they finally pass away. And it's almost just a relief at that point. Obviously, this is different. Nobody's actually dying here. But when we talk about Chris Taylor's contributions to the Dodgers, they've been slowly dying the last couple of years. And we've kind of been mourning that the last couple of years, so that now that he is finally gone, it's sad for him and his family. But from a baseball standpoint, it's mostly just a relief.
Yeah, and that lends right into the talk that we want to do about the offense. Because of Chris Taylor, being released, that essentially feels like it means Ha-Seong Kim's going to stick around on the roster. Even when Teoscar comes back, James Outman seems to be the likely candidate to go down. Now with Dalton Rushing, the team, the offense, the bench looks a lot different. And even this weekend, scoring runs wasn't necessarily the Dodgers' issue. Maybe, scoring runs later in games in order to keep up with their pitching was more the issue. But they still put up 15 runs, average of 5 runs a game. They didn't score 5 runs in every game. But even if they had scored 5 runs in every game, they still would have lost. If they had scored 5 runs each game, they would have lost each game. So it was a tough way to go about it. But for the offense, now with seemingly knowing the roster moving forward, is there still concern, or where are those concerns if there are?
The Dodgers are, among the highest scoring teams in baseball, and offensively their roster is better than it was, before this sweep happened. Tommy Edman's back. Teoscar Hernandez is back tomorrow. They replaced Chris Taylor and James Outman on the roster. Just mathematically, empirically speaking, the offense is better than it was. And that they still have to perform. But overall, I'm not concerned about the offense. There will always be slumps. There will always be a bad series here, a bad weekend there. But this Dodgers offense overall, for the most part, is going to get the job done. And nothing about this weekend changed that for me. Nothing about, they're a good offense, and I expect them to perform.
Yeah, and now, when you look at the offense, like you said, it's just not susceptible to slumps, but every team's susceptible to slumps in a certain way. And I think that's really the only thing that stops this offense is bad days and bad games and slumps. If Ohtani goes in a slump, if Freddie goes in a slump, Mookie hasn't quite been there fully yet, at least in the way we've seen Mookie Betts before, but he's been good enough, and I think he'll get better. I would hope so. I know there's people concerned with his bat speed, but we'll just wait and see there. I'm not going to count Mookie out because of a little bit of a slow start, especially considering what he's done in the past. You get past that, you get into the next tier. Will Smith's been really good, and now essentially probably going to get 2 days off a week now that they're comfortable giving rushing some time. He's going to have hopefully better numbers down the stretch than he's had the last few years. Max Muncy's been better since wearing glasses. Still not where we want to see him, but he's been better. And we've been asking for league average at some of these positions. And, if Muncy can get to league average, I think the Dodgers will be all right because Tommy Edman's back. Teoscar Hernandez should be back on Monday or later in the week, depending how he feels coming off his rehab assignment. So now, and Andy Paz has been on fire. So now the offense looks a lot different. Even if you give guys days off, Miguel Rojas becomes the weakest guy in the lineup. And, even as bad as Rojas is, he's still better than, what they had and what other people have.
Yeah, he's better than Taylor and Barnes, which is a very low bar to set. I do think Rojas is maybe looking over his shoulder with Alex Freeland in AAA. I don't necessarily think Freeland is ready to take that role yet, but Freeland could force the issue. Michael Conforto, obviously, he's shown signs of breaking out. He's definitely been better the last week and a half than he was for the 6 weeks before that. But he still hasn't been, the last few games, not great. And so when he was bad for as long as he was, it's hard to know which is the fluke, the week of hitting really well or the last couple of days of hitting poorly. And so that just remains to be seen, especially because defensively, he's not forcing the issue. He's not forcing his way into the lineup defensively. In fact, you can make a pretty strong case that defensively, the Dodgers are a much better team if Conforto wasn't in the lineup, because Andy Pages in a corner is better than Andy Pages in center. And so Conforto is going to have to do something. And obviously, like you said, Mookie Betts, hopefully it's just, his streakiness. The bat speed is down, but he can still, I think Mookie still has, even if he doesn't hit a ton of homers and just becomes a single doubles hitter, it's lazy flyouts. And what we need is line drives from Mookie, and whether they are 110 miles an hour or 102 miles an hour, he can be successful if he's hitting line drives. And so the bat speed doesn't concern me too much because right now it seems more of a launch angle thing.
Yeah, I will say, while I don't have concerns about the offense overall, I now have concerns about the offense being able to score as much as they're going to need to score because of the pitching. And one of those reasons is the bullpen and a little bit of ineffectiveness, but a little bit of injuries and not necessarily knowing when that's going to be fixed. I mean, right now, Ben Kasperi is just sitting as your best right-handed reliever, and that's someone they want to go multiple innings sometimes. So we're going to talk about all that and just how the Dodgers are going to manage this. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachio. If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I went on a trip last week, and I had plane rides both ways. Wonderful Pistachios was there to help me get through those plane rides and have a snack for me beyond just the pretzels they give you on the plane. And they're perfect. I got the unshelled version for these plane rides because, I don't want to be cracking shells. I don't know who I'm going to be sitting next to all the time. And they were perfect. They're a perfect snack. You can put them in your bag. I would recommend getting them at the store before you get to the airport just because it's going to be cheaper. But you do however you want to do. But that's all there for you. And it's going to, help you a lot of different ways. And I'll get back to my shelled versions here now that I'm at home. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. And make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. And you go beyond the podcast, come Locked On Dodgers Insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. All right, Jeff, like I mentioned before, the Dodgers bullpen is in a weird situation, bad situation, tough situation, ugly situation. There's a lot of different ways you can describe it, depending how you personally feel and how aggressive you are in those feelings. But Kirby Yates got hurt, came out of the game on Saturday and went on the IL. The Dodgers called up Lou Trevino, who they have recently signed to a minor league deal. And after allowing runs in the 9th inning, each of the last 3 games, and the Dodgers had chances in these games, and the bullpen couldn't really help out. It was more than just one guy. And with all the string of games coming up with not as many days off and, the starting pitching in a little bit of a flux, where are we at with this bullpen in terms of right now? Obviously, overall, if everyone comes back healthy at some point, they'll be fine. But right now, for the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, the bullpen is concerned.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And, like you were saying before the break, Ben Kasperi is really the only righty in the bullpen right now who the Dodgers can trust to pitch well. And he's a rookie, and so, I believe Kasperi is going to stay good, but, we don't have a ton of track record to say that. You look at who's on the injured list right now, and not even counting the guys who got hurt last year, Kyle Hurt, those guys who could be contributing to the bullpen right now, just relievers who we expected to be pitching this year. Bruce Dargratto is not back yet. Edgardo Henriquez, Michael Kopech, Evan Phillips, Blake Trinan, and Kirby Yates. I mean, that's six guys who every team would love to have in their bullpen, right there. Enriquez is obviously the low man on that totem pole, but if you get those other 5 guys back, suddenly you're having to make hard decisions. But instead, what you have in the current Dodgers bullpen is Tanner Scott, Ben Kasperi, Jack Dreyer, and then, Alex Vesia should be good, but has allowed almost as many home runs as he did all of last year. Anthony Bonda was good last year, has now allowed as many home runs as he allowed all of last year. Luis Garcia isn't good and continues to show us that. Lou Trevino pitched well today, to his credit. The first guy in a while who's gotten that shot and not blown it. When you look at JP Firehouse and Noah Davis and Yoendrys Gomez and whoever else the Dodgers have used who came up long enough to say Ryan Ludus to say long enough to say, I belong in the minor leagues. Maybe Lou Trevino can be a guy who can earn some trust. I don't know, way too early to say on that. But yeah, the Dodgers need to get guys back from injury. And right now, none of those 6 guys who I listed are super close. We did get video of Henriquez throwing at Camelback Ranch, but and the good thing about relievers is they don't need as long a rehab stints because they don't need to get built up. They just need to get there for one inning. And a guy like Luis Garcia can have value on a roster like this to come in and pitch. Hey, we need you to pitch the last 3 innings when we're up by 8 runs. Okay, sweet. I can do that. I can only allow 4 runs in 3 innings. Sure. But sometimes like today, they had to bring him in they were down by 1 run, and then he allowed another run and kind of put it out of reach. There's a huge difference between being down by 1 going to the bottom of the 9th and being down by 2. And the Dodgers have seen that 2 days in a row now. Obviously, Anthony Bonda, in a perfect world, Anthony Bonda would not be pitching after the Dodgers just tied up the game, even though his first inning was good. But, they would have loved to go to Evan Phillips and then Tanner Scott to finish off that game. But Evan Phillips is hurt. And so they had to stick with Bonda. All those things that just, I don't have concerns about the bullpen in September because I have no idea what the bullpen is going to look like in September or October. But right now, like it's to the point where it's hard to even know what.
It's a coin flip, I feel like, with pretty much everybody other than Tanner Scott and Casperius.
Yeah, it's hard to even know what they're going to do. Like, what's the approach even going to be? Are they going to, using Luis Garcia 3 days in a row feels like, hey, we're going to DFA you tomorrow. But then you look at the other options who are currently in the minors: Noah Davis, JP Fireeisen, Nick Frasso, Ryan Ludis, Bobby Miller, Justin Robleski. That's the 6 guys on the 40-man roster who are currently in the minor leagues. And it's like, okay, maybe, I guess Robleski they'd have to have an injury to bring him back up. It might be a thing where they do have to go with a guy like Robleski, or maybe if they haven't pulled the trigger on Bobby Miller being a reliever yet, they're probably not going to after he actually just threw a scoreless outing in the minors. But, it may be a thing where Nick Frasso, you've been struggling as a starter in the minors. Let's try you in the bullpen. Justin Robleski, you're going to be a long reliever just to get through until some of these 6 good relievers are healthy again.
Yeah, it's not good right now. And you look at the names when the season started or when we were heading into the season, and you look at the names now, and it's a completely different team. And, to be honest, this is a bullpen of a not good team. The good thing is that the offense can put up runs. The starting pitching, despite, what happened over the weekend, still has a chance to be decent enough. Yamamoto leading the charge there, really, and the other guys are just kind of a little bit of a mixed bag. With Gonsolin, we hadn't seen him struggle too much, so that's why you think, the finger issue might be something that was really giving him trouble. So the bullpen's not good right now. It seems like they're going to have to piece it together, and it's going to be a lot of, okay, well, we might win this one game because everybody had a good day, but then we're going to blow a lead the next day because some people had a bad day. And yeah, there's not necessarily answers right now in this organization and outside the organization. If somebody's not pitching right now, that's probably for a reason, and like a Joe Kelly. Joe Kelly's out there. Joe Kelly's available. I'm sure Joe Kelly
Don't forget Brent Honeywell.
Yeah, I'm sure those guys would be right there at Dodger Stadium as soon as they possibly could if the Dodgers called them, but that's not necessarily a long-term solution, and it's not that you have to be fair in this world, but not fair to call them up and then realize, and then, unless they know, hey, when someone's back, you're gone and you can pitch until then.
Yeah, I do want to address a point that Mark makes in the chat. He said the concern for September is wear and tear in the regular season. That's my issue. And it's a valid point. I was crunching some numbers.
The people that want to have wear and tear aren't even healthy right now.
Yeah, I was crunching some numbers before the game yesterday because yes, the Dodgers have used a lot of bullpen arms, but they haven't used the guys that matter. This was before Saturday's game in which both Kirby Yates and Tanner Scott pitched. But I looked up. Tanner Scott before that had thrown 2 innings in the previous 11 days. Kirby Yates 2 innings in the previous 12 days. Vesia 2 1/3 in the last 11 days. Casperius 2 1/3 in the last 12 days. Dreyer 2 2/3 in the last 9 days. Bonda 3 2/3 in the last 11 days. Like the guys who are supposed to be good aren't actually currently being overworked that much. It looked like it early in the season when you just looked at percentage of games they pitched in. But like we talked about many times, they had a ton of days off. And so even that was a little overblown. And like in this game on Sunday, yeah, it would have been nice to bring in Tanner Scott. But then who you bring in? It's 4-4. It's the 8th inning. Who pitches the 9th? What if it goes to extra innings? So the Dodgers kind of the decisions they're making that look to a lot of fans like Dave Roberts punting a game or whatever. It is with the goal of keeping the important arms fresh and saying, Luis Garcia, at age 97 or whatever you are right now, your job on this team is to go pitch innings that we don't want to use somebody more important for. And yeah, it would be nice if he could keep the game closer when he did that. But right now that's his role. And that is because they are looking at, in October, we want Tanner Scott and Ben Casparis and Kirby Yates and Jack Dreyer to be healthy. So we don't want to overuse those guys. So let's throw out the Lou Trevinos and the Luis Garcias and the Ryan Ludis and whoever else to get through this rough time. So I'm relatively confident that they will continue to get through this rough time. I just have no idea how and what it will actually look like.
Yeah, it just feels like they're going to go for wins in certain games with their best guys, and then the next day you're maybe going to see Lou Trevino and Luis Garcia and Anthony Banda. And if the Dodgers have a lead after 6 innings, they're going to try to use their best, and they can only do it maybe twice, 2 days in a row before eventually it's going to come to a point where they're going to use guys that are unproven or a coin flip or whatever it is. So the concern right now is real. The concern, in 2 months, we don't know yet.
Depends on who gets healthy.
Yeah, exactly. All right, now the starting pitching up next. Maybe not as much concern as the bullpen, but there's still things to be a little worried about. So we're going to talk about it. Make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, getting to that point where the games are going to be mattered for a lot of different people. And there's always different things. There's can't-miss moments, highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player. There's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. There's probably not a lot of people a fan of Pacers or Knicks or Thunder or Wolves that are listening to this podcast. So maybe you need a different way to make the games more exciting, and that's where FanDuel comes in. You could make live bets, prop bets, mid-game, before a game, in the fourth quarter, whenever it is. If somebody's heating up and you think they're going to go off in the second half, that's where you can get in on it. And right now you get a $200 bonus in bets if you hit a $5 bet first. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Want to thank you for being an everydayer. If you are one, an everydayer is just someone that listens or watches every day. We appreciate those of you that are everydayers. We appreciate those of you that want to become everydayers. And we appreciate those of you that are here for the first time and still deciding if you want to be an everydayer. And remember, you go beyond the podcast, become Locked On Dodgers Insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Get text directly from us and get invited to our Discord server in order to talk Dodgers with other Dodger fans. All right, Jeff. So we talked about the offense, we talked about the bullpen, and now we get into the starting pitching. And starting pitching was a mixed bag this weekend. Clayton Kershaw made his return, struggled a little bit at the start and wasn't very efficient, only went to 4 innings, giving up 5 runs. You got Tony Gonsolin dealing with an issue on his thumb, had the blood all over his pants, just only went 4 innings, gave up 4 runs with 5 walks. And then you had Dustin May, who did go 5 innings, but also gave up 4 runs, did strike out 8. I don't know. What's your thoughts on the starting pitching right now? You're muted.
Sorry about that. It definitely wasn't a stellar weekend for the Dodgers starting pitching. It's tough to know. Like Clayton Kershaw, it was his first start in 10 months or whatever it was. I expected command to be an issue, and it was. Now, Will the command be better in next start, or will it take 4 or 5 starts? I don't know. But I do think he will get better and better. Not going to get back to 2014 version of Clayton Kershaw, but I think we will see a version of Clayton Kershaw that can absolutely contribute to this team, including in the most important part of pitching 6 innings at least. And I hope that it's in the next start. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not overly concerned about Kershaw right now. And kind of the same with Gonsolin. It was a fluke thing. It wasn't a blister. Blisters can linger forever. This was just, I used to bite my fingernails. My fingers were bloody all the time because I'd be going at it and I pulled off too much skin. Oh, now it's bleeding. When I saw the blood splotch on his pants, I'm like, man, I have so many shirts that look like that, or did when I was a nail biter. Like you're always making your fingers bloody. That's all that was. And so it definitely affected him in this start. And it was really bad timing when the Dodgers could have used some depth, to the point where Dave Roberts actually had to consider using Monday's starter in relief on Sunday, which is not anything that you ever want to do as a manager. Luckily they didn't end up having to do it, but they did have to consider it. But I don't expect that to be a problem next time Gonsolin pitches. He's going to be fine. That'll be totally healed up. And Dustin May, I still don't know what we have in him. Overall, though, the pitching
gives innings.
Yeah, and that's what we need. The pitching needs to go deeper so that when they do have this diminished bullpen, they can look and see, okay, we got through 6 innings. What's the score? Are we up by 8 runs? Sweet. It's Luis Garcia time. Are we up by 12 runs? Sweet. It's Anthony Bonta time. Whatever it is, it's a close game. All right, we're going with Kasperius and Tanner Scott, and I don't know, maybe Jack Dreyer, I guess, Alex Vesia, whoever it is. But the key there is the starters need to get deeper. And I think it's going to happen. And they do have reinforcements on the way. Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow are both throwing. Don't know when they'll be back. Not anytime super soon. Emmett Sheehan is throwing high 90s. Does that mean he'll be back in a month? I don't know. But not crazy far away. And so they've got some reinforcements coming. And I think what they have right now on the roster has potential to give them 6 innings more often than not. They just haven't the last week and a half.
Yeah, it's one of those, not quite a coin flip like the bullpen, I don't think. Maybe with a guy like Dustin May, a little bit more of a coin flip at this point. He's had just as many mid to bad starts as he has good starts, but you're counting on innings more than effectiveness right now, and you're really counting on the offense to kind of carry this team. And I think that's where they're at. Obviously, yes, they believe in all these guys, but you also have to look at the reality. I believe in guys too, but you look at the reality of the situation. Dustin May, I'm glad that he's still pitching. I'm glad that, he's giving the Dodgers at least 5 innings, 6 innings every time out, but you would like that to be a little bit better in terms of quality. Tony Gonsolin has been pretty good. You're hoping this thumb thing doesn't, happen again or continue to flare up on him. With Kershaw, he was not effective because he couldn't put the ball where he wanted, because it seemed like he was a little rusty. And even with making all those rehab starts that he did, it's still a different thing to go out and do it. I don't think it's a matter right now of Kershaw being bad. Kershaw was bad that day. Now, if we see a couple more starts where he struggles, then you have that conversation of, okay, maybe he's not effective anymore. But we're not there yet with him. Yamamoto, for the most part, it's been a little bit rocky the last 2 times out, but I still trust him. Then you have Landon Knack, who's good for at least 2 times through the lineup for the most part. And then you have Matt Sauer, who might make a start or might be a piggyback guy or might be a reliever. Who knows what they're going to do? It's a lot of question marks. I think they're in a better spot than the relievers. They're not in as good a spot as the offense. And I do think that Dave Roberts is going to have to push some of these guys, because their time through the lineup for, name a starter might be just as – the numbers might show that just as effective as, hey, here's Luis Garcia for the 3rd day in a row.
Yeah, and, I see Mark in the chat, definitely not as high on Clayton Kershaw as I am. And yeah, obviously I'm biased because Clayton Kershaw is my favorite player, but also, he hasn't had a great fastball in years. and yet he still continued to be effective from 2018 through 2023. That's 6 seasons in which Kershaw's fastball was topping out at 90 or 91. Basically the same pitcher, obviously younger than he is now, but the same pitcher, same velocity and everything. He had a 2.77 ERA across those 6 seasons and averaged over 5.8 innings per start. Like, he was a 6-inning, very effective guy. And his FIP was in the low 3s. So it's not like he was getting crazy lucky. He's still a very good pitcher when he's healthy. And so obviously that will go away at some point. And I hope that he retires before it goes away. I hope we never see the version of Clayton Kershaw that's actually bad at pitching. I think one start this year is way, 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 way too soon to say that this is the version of Clayton Kershaw that is bad at pitching, when I think if you looked at anybody making their first big league start in 10 months, it's probably 90% of them struggled with command in that first start. And that was what we saw. It's not like he was going out there throwing 83-mile-an-hour fastballs like late career Jared Weaver. He was just, he didn't have command. And so, yeah, I can't wait until Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow are healthy. I'm going to have to wait. They may never be healthy at the same time in their entire lives. I don't know. But it would be nice to, I just want everybody to be healthy, you know? Is that too much to ask for all the players on my favorite team just be healthy and effective?
At least 75%. Like, we're down to what, like almost 50% of the opening day or expected opening day guys injured right now. And, you know, it's not, luckily so far, nothing's been season ending, but it's definitely a tough time right now. Not the best time for all this to happen. But again, if the Dodgers can just win 2 out of every 3 or 3 out of every 5, you know, they'll be in a decent spot. The offense will have to shoulder a lot of that. They'll have good performances. Like, there's going to be standout games from starters. There's going to be games where the relievers come through. But right now, there's also probably some games where both or one of those aren't going to happen, and those games are going to be frustrating, especially if you top that off with an offense that doesn't do anything. Then, you know, it might not be as fun to watch Dodgers, or it might be as fun. I don't know, depending on how you feel on things personally as a fan. But it's definitely something that we're going to continue to talk about and continue to monitor. And, you know, at least for I mean, talking about like Barnes and Taylor specifically, this might be why the Dodgers did this right now, because Eston Kim is, you know, better offensively than Chris Taylor. Don Rushing better offensively than Austin Barnes. You know, when you get back Teoscar, he's better offensively, obviously, than Tommy Edman. I mean, then nothing. Well, yeah, but then James Outman, and that might be why the Dodgers did this. Hey, we know that we're going to be pushing it with our pitchers. Let's try to score more than everyone.
Yeah, and just remember, it could be worse. We could be talking about a team that isn't in first place and tied for the second best record in baseball. Yes, this weekend sucked, wasn't fun, but overall, what they're doing is working and will continue to work. They obviously, hopefully, it will start working soon a lot better than it worked this weekend.
Yeah, so that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day, your last listen of the day, whatever listen of the day. We appreciate those of you that are everydayers. That's just someone that listens or watches every day. It's very easy for you to do that. You can just listen or watch every day. You can check out Locked On MLB Game Night for another listen of your day. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can go beyond the podcast and Locked On Dodgers Insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Get text directly from us and join our Discord server. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. You can find Jeff on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM us any questions or comments. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. Take your smart device, play a podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.